Hello there, it's Renee Fredrickson coming to you from PAC14 and MAC Incorporated, the Caregiver Resource Center. It's been a little while since we've featured some interesting items out of the Caregiver Resource Center on PAC14. We have been busy and all kinds of products to show you in this broadcast. I'll introduce you to 3 different exciting things coming up, and then I'll really zero in on one in particular where we've joined hands with CFES Women's Fund and Salisbury University. And during this period, I'll have a conversation with George Whitehead. Dr. Whitehead works at Salisbury University, and he has joined hands with me in particular with a class of his to lay some of the foundation pieces for one of the projects that we're going to talk about. Well, first of all, I'd like everyone to grab their calendar and mark October 9th on it. October 9th is another partnership example that I can tell you about. On October 9th, United Seniors of Maryland and the Caregiver Resource Center are pulling together a caregiving conference. For more details on that, please don't hesitate to call us at MAC. That's 410-742-0505, and extension 172 will get you right to my desk. Otherwise, you can email me as well, and I'll be happy to tell you all about that conference. We're going to cover 3 topics in the conference. It will begin about 9 a.m. and end about 3 p.m. that afternoon. It's all including a lunch and great speakers, great information, a host of different vendors to help you learn about what's available in your community for just $10. So give me a call when you have a chance. The next thing that I'd like to alert you to is that you'll see me in and around the community talking with different groups about an exciting thing that can help each and every one of us with the help of our hospitals and our nursing homes throughout the area. It's called the CARE Act, and that CARE Act is about assuring that when we leave a hospital or institutional setting, we have help lined up at home, and we are very clear on the instructions that we have to follow once we get home so that the healing takes place and we prevent early returns to the hospital or nursing home. And finally, the third feature, and the one that I would like to visit more about on this broadcast, is one of helping neighbors help each other. This is a project that we're calling Village People, and in the Village People project, it's a combination of things. It's a co-op where people exchange goods and services between neighbors. It's also a time banking system where we keep track of how many tasks and how many hours worth of tasks we perform during a given period of time and put them in a bank. And then finally, it involves a clearinghouse. Well, this poster that I'm holding up is a recruitment poster for volunteers. We're recruiting on 2 fronts for this project. We're recruiting families that will fill out the survey that's happening door to door, and we're recruiting volunteers as well. A portion of those volunteers will come from Salisbury University. But before we get into that, please meet my guest this afternoon, Dr. George Whitehead.
Hi, Renee.
Hi, George. How has your summer been for you?
It's going by pretty quickly, but it's been a good summer. Thanks for asking.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to go into sort of a time machine here, George, and I'm going to ask you more than just how your summer was, because it sounds like it was good in the neighborhood. But I'm going to ask you to think about what your neighborhood looked like 30 years ago. Tell me about who lived there, what kinds of things they did with their time, and who still lives there today.
There were a lot of families.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of young people my age,
Mm-hmm.
and it was sort of the baby boomer kind of situation. And it was pretty hard to get in any kind of trouble because people were sort of watching out for you, and
Mm-hmm.
if something went a little amiss somehow or another, it got back to to mom and dad pretty quickly. And
George, you sound like you have experience on the trouble front.
well, I think anybody growing up has a little bit of issues every once in a while. So,
That's right.
But you know, you take your bike and you go out and you run around the neighborhood and not think really twice about it.
Mm-hmm. So there was sort of an informal and very good security system going on in your neighborhood. Neighbors watch out for one another.
Really didn't think twice about it.
Yeah, yeah. George, was there always someone home in the neighborhood? If your mom or dad didn't happen to be home, could you go to a neighbor and find some help?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so
Okay.
you know, if she wasn't out and about, she was home, and that was pretty much true about a number of people in the neighborhood. Usually, the dads were commuting elsewhere, like New York City or something like that, so they were seldom home, but the moms were around.
Mm-hmm. Were there any moms in your neighborhood that worked outside of the home?
Probably a couple, yeah, probably a couple.
Yeah, yeah. I'll bet there were occasions where somebody was a little pinched for time. They had double booked their schedule, and all of a sudden the mom next door needed a place for her kids to go for a couple of hours. Can you ever remember that happening in your neighborhood, and maybe you went to someone else's
Well, actually,
house?
one of my earliest jobs was as a babysitter, so that if that situation arose very often, I would be the child of choice. I was the oldest child. I was the child of choice, so I would do a little bit babysitting for that kind of scenario. But yeah, people really sort of took care of one another, if you will. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And I'll bet at the same time, if we needed help getting that brand new washing machine out of the truck and into the house, it may not have been delivered from the appliance dealer, but rather Dad picked it up and he needed a hand to get it into the house. And you would call upon a neighbor for that.
It's usually Saturday mornings, yes.
Saturday mornings, okay. Bright and early Saturday mornings, just what every teenager loves, huh? Help Dad get that
absolutely right,
washing machine in the house. Well, when you think about your neighborhood today, George, that you live in, how many people are home every day?
Probably not too many. I think everybody's out and about working. And
And how old are the houses in your neighborhood?
houses in my neighborhood were probably built in the 60s, something like 60s, 70s. Our house was built a little later than that.
So they're 40, 50 years old at this point. No doubt there were a few in that neighborhood that were built with the idea of raising a family, and you saw buses pull up to the corner and pick up a whole long line of kids. And I'm willing to bet that if aging in place has taken place, people have grown old in that neighborhood, there might still be a bus stop, but not nearly as many kids lined up at the bus.
That's correct, yeah, that's correct. There were, when my children were there were a number of kids. The bus stop was fairly near my home, and so you know, you could see a number of kids there lined up.
Well, all of these questions about your neighborhood and how it has changed, George, are important things that I think about, because I recognize that when asked the question, where would you most like to be to the very end of your days, most people would say at home. And that's called aging in place. A couple of things come to mind about aging in place. If my house was built for a family 40 or 50 years ago, it probably includes more steps than I'm able to handle now. I was 30 then and I'm 80 now. So it includes more steps than I'm able to handle. The washer was probably on a different level than what I spend most of my time on today. And I was still driving my own car if I needed to attend to some appointment. And all of those things have changed now. Maybe someone in my family or a good-hearted neighbor has helped me to get that washing machine moved from a lower level of my home to the main level where I live. And other little adjustments in the place that I live make my housing more suitable than it used to be now that I'm older. But, you know, a house is really only a box of space, and it should function well for us. And if we make those adjustments with help by the experts from Basil, or even Mac has experts on how to revamp your house for your current circumstances, that's one thing. But even a house that functions well for me now with wider doorways and a washer on the same floor and maybe a ramp has been added doesn't get me to and from a doctor's appointment, doesn't get me to and from a grocery store. As I'm having problems with eyesight, and maybe I haven't been in the workforce for 10, 15, 20 years, I may even have problems getting through some of the forms that come to my house to be filled out, whether they're for insurance or whether they are for, pardon me, whether it's for taxes. Because terminology changes, and unless we're kind of in the work world, we may be missing a few of those new terms. But all in all, you know, I'm doing well in this house because it's been revamped, and I still enjoy cooking. I do my own cooking, and I notice next door, and now I'm stealing one of your stories, George. I notice next door a working family, and I'm just wondering about their gatherings in the evening. Do you remember this story that you told me about, George?
You know, I had the opportunity to go to the session that you had on time banks, and last week I was reading a newspaper, I believe it was Washington Post, and they had an article about time banks at Stanford Medical Center.
Oh.
And what was interesting about it was that a lot of these interns and young doctors were putting in lots and lots and lots and lots of hours, and there was this single doctor who you know, was missing out on going home with his kids, and you know, stopping wherever and getting whatever, you know, for meals and stuff. And then because of this time bank and because of the cooperative program and because of time that he put in, you know, there were all these dinners that were ready for him when he came home, either by his neighbors or his colleagues or something like that.
Ooh, let me get the number on this.
Yeah, and you know, what was fun about that was it was really a very good example of this whole time bank thing, and not just for folks that are aging in place. You know, here's a young family, a young doctor, and the way that he could utilize that. And so evidently, by the way the article went, that, you know, it's really transformed kind of what happened in the workplace in this particular patient. So, you know, it's an exciting concept. And again, you know, it's one of those things that used to be pretty informal, but I think somehow or another we got away from these things. So now it's really very formalized, and people keep track of all that stuff now.
Well, I love this story because it's such a great example of how older people continue to give and want to give to the community.
So it isn't just receiving, it is I have something to offer, and then it's very good, absolutely.
Well, thank you for that story. It's a perfect example of what we're trying to do with the Village Co-op here in Salisbury.
Great. It's good.
George, when you think about your neighborhood today, do you see where this kind of arrangement of neighbors trading tasks for one another might work?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, you know, with respect to aging in place and all, I mean, we've been in our home a little bit of time, and we're getting older. So as you think about some of these issues, you know, making your environment more friendly as you get older, and then, you know, the ability to do certain tasks, I think it's something that a lot of times people, as you get older, have to sit back and kind of reflect upon, and just kind of figure out how you're going to do all that.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet that it wasn't a one-way street, that those professionals out in the work world had some weekends free and evenings, and it was at those times they might do some repair work in exchange for that older lady that was their new chef, or even help her to fill out some of those forms.
Right, so it's sort of a reciprocity arrangement, yes.
Exactly, exactly. Well, that's what we're talking about in the village co-op. I may not be able to do my tax forms, and you can do that for me, regardless of your age. And 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 while you can do the tax forms for me, place yourself in an older person's 85, 90 years old. You can do the tax forms, but you're not very good at cutting your grass anymore. So maybe I have a riding mower and I can cut your grass for it. So the examples of how we can exchange these things are really endless. And we've gotten into this habit of paying for those services with dollars. But part of this project is paying for those services with other services that we can offer, or paying for them with hours that we deposit into a time bank. So it takes you 2 hours to cut my grass. You put 2 hours in your time bank, and that happens 20 times in a year. Now you have 400 hours in the time bank. And when you need time back out of that bank for someone to do your tax forms, you withdraw 6 hours.
Yeah, it's really an interesting concept, and like I said, it's become much more formalized. So, what was
Mm-hmm.
sort of an implicit kind of rule that you had, now you're right. We have the data banks, and we have all this
Yeah.
other kind of thing to keep track of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So we, instead of using old index cards for that neighborhood, we can go to the database, and in this case, Mac would be the time banker,
Right.
keeping track of all of it, and it all runs smoothly. Well, it sounds like a real good idea to us. Everything looks good on paper, and it is working in more than 30 communities across Maryland today. Probably the oldest one was Beacon Hill out of Massachusetts. You've heard of Beacon Hill, George?
Have some, yes.
As a co-op, yeah. And like I say, it all looks good on paper, but we really need to do some serious information gathering before we know whether it will really work, and before we start signing people up. And that's where you come in. You have several classes at the university.
Yes.
And will you tell me again how you're going to play a part in this whole Village People scheme?
Yeah. First, I think we should acknowledge that we received a small grant from Governor's Office of Social Volunteerism to help facilitate the survey gathering and so forth and so on. I teach specifically a social psychology class, and part of the class you talk a little bit about surveys and methodologies, so that what the students will be doing here is actually doing hands-on gathering of information with respect to surveys. There's a little bit of hypothesis testing in here, so there's some ways to try to do that as well. And then part of social psychology is always dealing with human interactions. Well, this is a wonderful human interaction. And there's some pro-social behavior kind of things that are going on here. Will a neighbor help a neighbor, and that kind of thing. So it becomes a really interesting way for them to reflect and think about some of the research that we cover in class. And it wouldn't just necessarily be about pro-social, it wouldn't be about interpersonal attraction, interactions, and those kind of things. So it really becomes sort of a living, if you will, laboratory for doing those things. And for me personally, over the last number of years, I've tried to include projects like this when relevant, and this really is very relevant to what I do in class. And I'm real excited about it. So it'll be here before we know it, Renee, won't it?
It certainly will. And speaking of that, we're recruiting volunteers in addition to the students, because we hope to have a team of 50 surveyors go out into the community. How many people do you have in your class this
About
semester?
half that number. About half that number, yeah.
So somewhere 25 to 30 of
Yeah.
the surveyors will be students from Salisbury University. How will I know that it's a student coming to my door?
Well, I think that they'll identify themselves. They'll have a copy of a brochure, and it's a research protocol that basically we had approved, and so they'll identify themselves as a student, and then give them a brochure, or if they're not home, leave a brochure for them, and then come back and answer a series of questionnaires. And this is the brochure that they'll distribute. Kind of explains what's going on, and then has all the partners on the back. So I think it's absolutely win-win for everybody.
Okay. Well, I can't tell you how grateful we are at MAC that you are adding to the manpower, and that it will be done in a professional manner so that we really have valid information to go on, because this whole project needs to be based on good, solid information, and knowing that they're under your supervision, my supervision as well, that these are people that we can trust, they're being monitored. It all makes perfect sense, and it's just a pleasure to work with you on this. George, will they get any sort of training before they go out into the community?
I was just going to talk about that, so you anticipated that. Yeah,
All
in fact,
right.
you were going to provide some of the training for that. Yeah. Yes, we're going to have training at the university for students and anybody else who wishes to volunteer.
September 3rd?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll be in Purdue Hall. And if people want more information, they can either contact me or you, and we can give them that information.
Okay, and all of that information, the contact numbers and everything is on this sheet. But otherwise, would you mind giving us a telephone number that they can use to reach you if they're interested
my office
in
phone
signing
would
up?
be 410-543-6369.
Okay.
Or email me, giwhitehead@salisbury.edu.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, what kinds of things will the students or the volunteers be covering in this orientation? What kinds of things will they be listening to?
Well, I mean, I think it's important that they understand the purpose of what it is they're doing, because then they can reflect on it, and role MAC plays in it. And then, whole issue of confidentiality and data collecting and how the data is going to be used, and then, really going through a little bit of an informed consent with the people that are going to be completing it, so that if there are questions they don't want to answer, they don't have to. And students need to understand that, you're approaching volunteers, and they are strictly that, and provide the information that they feel comfortable providing.
So people should look on their doorknobs for these brochures as we hang them in different neighborhoods, and if they don't happen to find one on their doorknob, they can give me a call at MAC, and we'll get them in touch. May they call you as well if they are interested in taking the survey?
Yeah, and then the students are going to come back, or volunteers who are going to be doing this are going to come back to the neighborhoods where they've already left the brochure, and follow up with a questionnaire.
And about how long will it take them to conduct the survey?
Roughly an hour.
Okay.
A little chit chat and all that kind of stuff, and then answering questions. So
yeah,
a little under an hour.
Yeah. If I don't write so well anymore, if I have any problems with the terminology in the survey, is the student allowed to help me out?
Absolutely correct, and that's part of what we'll do in the training. Walk them through that and make sure they're comfortable with what's on the survey as well. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any identification on the survey? I mean, some of the things that I say in this survey that I need help with, I may not have admitted to my own family members yet.
About half or so of it is anonymous, but then if you're going to want help, then we've asked to identify that, because you need to have that information to be able to provide assistance. Yeah.
Okay, so that will be on a separate sheet?
Absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, and then how will we use the information that's on the survey sheets then? Will I be identified individually by my answers?
No, it's going to be aggregated, and then we'll get a good sense of what people need and what people would like to provide.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think it's exciting to think about finding out what particular neighbors need, but also at the same time there are questions in that survey tool that ask what neighbors might provide.
Correct, absolutely, yeah. So you need to be able to identify that as well, so that they, if somebody needs help, you can say, you know, so and so will do that for you. Yeah.
If I'm kind of interested in where this thing is going and in the final report, in that summary of all the answers, how do I get a hold of that, and is it available to the public?
Because MAC is going to move forward on this project, and
Absolutely.
we're partnering with MAC to help facilitate the project. So I think MAC is going to probably be the keeper of that.
You know, as a part of the identification factor, each one will wear a specific name tag, and that name tag will hold the logos of those organizations that have partnered behind that. So it should be in the same colors as you find on the brochures, and the logos printed on the back of that brochure will also appear on the name tag. So people should look for that as an identifier.
It's really an exciting project, Renee, and I hope the community buys in from both perspectives. If there are people who would like to participate as an interviewer, and then be receptive to folks that are coming around to ask them some questions. And you know, I think Village People is a really good name for this, because, you know, you hear it takes a village to raise a child, but it really takes a village to keep everybody in their home and to make a community work.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else that you'd like to tell us about this social psychology class? I can hardly wait to meet these students. Yeah.
It'll be a good. It's an interesting area of study, and I look forward to this project being part of what we do. Yeah.
Are they all young people, you know, in their 20s? Are there a mix of non-traditional students in your class?
I have no clue yet.
Okay.
It's a 300 level class, so, you know, it could be traditional students, but it could also be you know, non-traditional student coming back and getting involved in university or taking a couple of classes. And I truly won't know till I walk in that classroom the very first day. So.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I am too. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Whitehead, for your willingness to help us gain the grant from GOSV for this special project, for your support of Village People, and for your support continuing right through the survey process with your students. I'm glad that we can help out.
Well, I'm glad we had the opportunity to partner with this, Renee, and I think it's really a terrific project, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results.
I am too. I am too. I am sure they're going to point us to the formation of a Village People co-op in our area, and help people really to age safely and comfortably in their preferred location.
And I think that's what a lot of people want to do. And as I talk to people, you know, they have friendships and they have everything, and you know, they're comfortable in their home and so forth, and so that's where they'd like to be. So hopefully we can facilitate that.
Yeah. One of the things I wouldn't be surprised to find out is that there are more willing people in our neighborhood to help out than we imagine. And if they are like myself, it's so hard to ask for help. And I see how busy they are. And with the survey and with telling us what's available out there, and then with the organization of a co-op, so I don't have to ask my neighbor directly. I can call the MAC office, and they can run the interference, if you will. They can make the invitation for that help. I think people will be able to.
Well, it's a real specific ask, you know. So it's like, I need help getting to or whatever. So it's not like you know, real open-ended. Although there could be some folks that it is, but it's a real specific kind of ask.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I want to thank PAC-14 as well for hosting this program and broadcasting for us. And I look forward to speaking with you again on that conference coming up on October 9th on your hopeful participation as a volunteer or as a family filling out the survey, and also in one of our CARE Act sessions coming up. Have a great day.
Would you like to see your community organization or nonprofit group featured on PAC-14? To get started, contact us at 410-677-5014 or visit our website at www.pac14.org. PAC-14 is a great way to connect with your community.